Attorney and General Funk, if you could introduce yourself and your colleagues and then make whatever budget presentation you'd like to make.
All right. I'm Glenn Funk. I'm the new district attorney. I've brought Michael Brook with me. He's been the CFO and HR person for the district attorney's office for over the last 25 years, and he's been really helpful through the transition. Let me kind of go over a little bit about the budget. I was elected in May of 2014, and I took office on September 1st. We had some personnel changes and a lot of issues with regards to making sure that we met the budget for last year, and I'm proud to be able to report to you that at this point we expect to be able to come in actually under budget for the 2014-2015 year. When I ran for the office of district attorney, I had three major planks to my platform. First of which was we were going to be very serious and intentional about domestic violence. Second, we were going to make sure that we were very intentional about making sure that we prosecuted violent crime. And third, we were going to make sure that we promoted diversity within the office to make sure that the office of the district attorney reflected the community. Joining us now is Katie Miller. She's actually the assistant district attorney that's in charge of family protection, which includes domestic violence as well as child physical abuse and child sexual abuse. With regard to domestic violence, because that was a major reason why I ran, was my commitment to that issue, I'd first like to thank you because your leadership in this area dates back several years and in fact was in front of all the media attention that's been focused in the last year. You had already done a lot of things with regards to starting to build out the Gene Crow Advocacy Center and to work on a family justice center. And so there were a lot of things in place thanks to your leadership as well as your leadership team, including Diane Lance. Once I was sworn in, the first thing I did was I put additional resources toward fighting domestic violence. We moved 4 additional district attorneys, essentially doubling the size of the domestic violence prosecution lawyers. We have also worked with your office to make sure that we were able to get some domestic violence prosecution support to people that primarily do investigation, but also do things like give victims rides to court and rides home from court, doing things such as making sure that there are no holes in the investigation and help us with the prosecution side. I'd also like to point out that the Gene Crow Advocacy Center is doing a super job with regard to making sure that victims have a safe place when they come to court and make sure that they can stay through court and make sure that they get plugged into the nonprofits to be able to help them get into healthier relationships. Sheriff Hall has also partnered with us. There is a space in the A.A. Birch building that we have been able to use thanks to him to set up a place where lawyers and defense attorneys can speak and negotiate cases where we can do so in private, where the lawyers actually control the cases instead of sometimes the defendants doing so. I'd also like to thank the JIS for their daily IT support. And then Mr. Brook handed you right before this hearing started a handout, and going through the handout fairly quickly, our total budget is somewhere a little north of $12 million. Of that, roughly $5 million or $5.5 million comes from Metro. We are very grateful for that. Without that, we would not be able to do our work in a county this size with this many cases. Our total appropriations have gone up over the last 11 years. From 2008 to 2015, during your term, it's gone up just under 10%. The next page is a diversity page. Davidson County, from the 2010 census, has a 20% or 28% African American population and a 10% Hispanic population, 3% other, and 59% white. When I took office, we had no Hispanic and only 2 African American attorneys on staff. Currently, within the whole, not just the attorneys, but we're at 19% African American, 2% Hispanic, and 79% white. Those numbers are increasing, and as far as lawyers go, we now have 9 lawyers that are either African American or Hispanic on staff, 8 of those are licensed. 1 is sitting for the bar this coming summer. And as other turnover happens in the office, I am committed to making sure that within the next couple of years, we actually accurately reflect the population of Nashville. Our case statistics on the next page show that warrants and citations have been roughly the same over the last 8 years. The indictments and informations filed are slightly down, but overall case appearances are up because of different factors with regards to making sure that the cases are handled properly, and sometimes there's an extra court appearance or two in that. If you go forward past the number of docketed cases, you see that in juvenile court, the delinquency petitions filed are down, which is a testament to the good work that's been done over in juvenile court by our office and by the folks in the juvenile court, the judge and the judge's staff. Transfer cases are down. We are taking very close looks and making sure that the juveniles that are transferred to be tried as adults are the right juveniles, the ones that really cannot be helped by the juvenile court system, or the ones that society really needs protection from those individuals. Our fraud unit has continued to do an excellent job. What the case values from 1998 to 2013 total over $104.9 million in losses for victims. The federal government prosecutes some of the really, really large cases with regards to fraud and economic abuse, but we've been doing a whole lot with the staff that we have. The warrant screening is a situation where citizens who have a complaint come down and meet with the district attorney prior to taking out their warrants. Many times we will either decline by saying, hey, this is not really a crime, or referring them on to the police department. This screening has eliminated literally thousands of cases over the years that probably were not crimes to begin with, but somebody had an argument, and what we're trying to do is make sure that the court process is reserved for folks that have actually committed a crime. And so that's been a very successful program that was actually started by my predecessor and continues today. We were asked a few months ago to plan for a potential 3% decrease, which for us would be roughly $163,400. What we would have to do if we did that is probably cut 2 assistant district attorney positions. We don't know for sure exactly where we'd find the money to cut, but that's probably where we would go. In the handout, I say that we would cut 2 ADA staff positions from juvenile court. It's not that those positions would just go unmanned, it's that we would have to fold the juvenile court prosecution team into the general sessions prosecution team and then rotate through the general sessions and the juvenile court in a way that can make sure that the juvenile court dockets are funded. Obviously, we don't want to do that because we like having folks who are dedicated to only doing juvenile court cases. There are some unique issues with regards to juvenile court prosecution, and but if the cuts are mandated, that's probably where we would go. Our staff budget requests additions with regards to domestic violence. We really need a legal secretary and a record clerk. Those are 2 different positions. One of the things that we've done with domestic violence is we've been able to work with your office and with the circuit court judges to have a situation where now if someone is charged with domestic violence, you don't just have a general sessions case that then gets bound over and is put with all the other felonies that are being prosecuted. They now go straight to a docket that is dedicated solely to the domestic violence cases. The reason we do that is because we want those cases heard more promptly. If a woman has been victimized by her husband or someone in her family, there are lots of pressures. If she has the courage to take out the warrant, there are a lot of pressures to get her to drop that warrant or to not show up for court. By having that process be more efficient and have the case go through the system faster, we are hoping that we will be able to make sure that that victim knows that she has the support of the district attorney's office and the court system, and that we can do it promptly, where the forces that are trying to get her to drop the case have less time to do that. In order to really support that, we'd really like to have a legal secretary that can take off of the assistant district attorneys some of the purely secretarial functions that they're doing. And with regards to the record clerk, this these extra cases and these extra dockets have put a burden on our record room to an extent that we really need those positions in order to keep going as efficiently as we would like to do. We also have a salary scale equalization that we're asking for. There are built step raises into the state system so that any assistant DA that is hired by the state has a step raise built in. Those step raises are not built in the Metro assistant DAs, and so what we do is we are asking for the money to make sure that those step raises get paid to the Metro assistant DAs. We currently have 5 ADA positions, 3 criminal investigators, 1 legal secretary, and 1 office support representative who have been, we have those positions, but we don't have the funding for them because my predecessor took the position that I agree with and I'm going to continue, which is that one of the first things we have to do is make sure that the attorneys are paid at an appropriate level and that it doesn't matter whether you're paid on the Metro budget or out of the state budget, that you're getting the same pay for the same amount of years of service. We have other proposed improvements. We've asked for a replacement vehicle for our domestic violence prosecution support team, which is used primarily when they go out on an investigation or to assist with a victim. Witness transportation. We need additional $18,000 worth of funds to make sure that when there is a case that we determine we really need the victim to come in from out of state or from somewhere else in the state of Tennessee, that we can have the funds available to have those people available to testify in court. In the Vanderbilt rape case, that case by itself had about how much, Michael?
We've already spent more than $14,000.
$14,000.
At this point today.
To make sure that the victim in that case and witnesses in that case are able to be here in order to prosecute cases that are that serious and that important. Lastly, on the proposed improvements, our rent, around 14 years ago, the district attorney's office left this building, the historic courthouse, and moved into the Washington Square building. The rent is set to increase from $16.17 per square foot to $16.49. That will cause an additional $47,000 to come from our budget for the next fiscal year. So that is an overview of where we are. General Miller's here, who can answer questions. She's in court very frequently. She supervises the folks who are in court on a daily basis. She can let you know firsthand exactly the improvements, thanks to your office and the dedication of resources from our office, how we're making a difference with regards to domestic violence. If you've got other questions about what our priorities are and where we're going, I'll be glad to answer those.
The new docket begins in circuit court, that's started, right?
That has already started.
And how many arraignments have we done so far?
We had 4 pages of arraignments, which would be roughly 15 to 20 people on the docket last week. The one prior week that we had, it was just a one person. Right now, if a case gets bound over, within 30 days, we are expecting the grand jury to be able to indict that person and get them to court. So these are just folks who have been bound over since the end of January, early February. Now that we have the spigot turned on, we're going to see roughly that same number of people indicted every couple weeks. And the first discussion date should be coming up this week or next week, with first trials in that within the next 45 days, I expect.
Okay, so you're anticipating 40, or you do it every other week?
Every week except the first Wednesday of the month.
So probably somewhere in the area of 50 to 60 cases a month.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would expect.
How's it gone so far?
Well, very, very well so far. Of course, all we've done so far is arraignments.
Right.
But Judge McClendon has been great to work with. She's already doing the DUI docket, and her court staff has been great as far as working with us, as far as getting these defendants in, getting them arraigned, and we'll find out over the next couple weeks how this works as far as being able to get these jury trials scheduled and prosecuted.
Okay. Well, good. And I should thank Judge McClendon for stepping up and volunteering to do that. Let me just ask you this. In terms of the number of cases, the the transfer cases, the petitions, delinquent petitions, and the criminal court cases have either gone down or held steady,
That's correct.
right? And general sessions is up.
General Sessions is up to some extent. Now, that could be a number of factors, whether it's the number of people who are actively being cited for driver's license cases, whether it's an increased presence, which we are advocating with regards to DUIs. With regards to domestic violence charges, those numbers are up, and we attribute that at this point to to better awareness within the community, to where victims don't just take the abuse, but they know that there's support and they're at least making the first phone call. So that's why we think that those cases are up. With regard to other cases being down, I think that is in part thanks to some good work from the police department with regards to violent crime and murders going down. But with regards to the total body of work and total body of cases, it's pretty flat over the last couple of years.
Okay. All right. Rich, you got any?
Sure.
Great. I can understand it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Katie,
Appreciate
good
it.
seeing you. Michael, thanks.
See you.